I'm reading again from my book, Mind and Evolution as Assessed Through Reviews of Major Texts. This time, Metazoa, Animal Life and the Birth of the Mind, by Peter Godfrey-Smith, 2020. I've long wanted an authoritative but readable account of how mind is thought about in a biological context among academics. Peter Godfrey-Smith's Metazoa, Animal Life and the Birth of the Mind, looks like what I wanted. He is the needed combination of academic philosopher and field worker. He illustrates essays on creatures and their minds, ranging from microbes to humans, with his encounters with cephalopods while scuba diving. In Metazoa and his other books, I trust I come across all the ideas common in academic thinking about consciousness in a biological context. My conclusion? Those ideas, as they currently exist, are absurdly inadequate to the task. If we're confused about consciousness, that's largely because we lack concepts we need to understand it. Metazoa does share with me some of this concern. Quote, "If we ask whether there is something it is like to be it, then we are back where we started. Our current language seems somehow inadequate for asking the crucial questions here. But I don't think the problem can be solved just by coming up with better terms. At this point, we are inside a thicket of every kind of uncertainty." Through Woodger's biological principles, we could sample the philosophy of biology roughly midway in the development of evolutionary theory. Godfrey-Smith can stand for where it is today. Having previously taught at Harvard University and Stanford University, he is now professor of history and philosophy of science at the University of Sydney. Princeton University Press chose him to author Philosophy of Biology volume in its series Princeton's Foundations of Contemporary Philosophy. Through his writing, we can sample how philosophy of biology has changed since Woodger's day. Where Woodger was concerned to analyze ideas such as adaptation in excruciating detail, Godfrey-Smith takes today's modern synthesis of natural selection and genetic mutation as a body of assumptions on which philosophy of biology should be based. He doesn't question them. I like to picture as the two greatest discoveries of modern times physical laws and that we evolved. And I'm disconcerted when generalizations coming from the first, physical laws, are taken as laws governing the second. This Godfrey-Smith consistently does. His philosophy of biology is a physics textbook on biology. In it, he grudgingly accepts that laws governing biology have exceptions, aren't as cut and dried as they are in physics. He deals in mathematical models, plays with game theory, and so on. For physicalists such as Godfrey-Smith, the mental is physical. To account for mind and conscious experience, all we need to explain is how the brain generates thoughts and experiences. Quote, "The aim is to make sense of why it feels like something to be a material being of the kind we are. Brain processes are not causes of thoughts and experiences. They are thoughts and experiences. Experiences and other mental goings-on are biological and hence physical processes of a certain kind. If materialism is true, then the storms within cells, the threading together of countless cells' activity, the perturbed rhythms of their electrical breathing, and their large-scale coordination are the stuff of mind. This is what we are asked to identify with, not to think that our minds are a consequence of all this, but that our minds are such activities. What is experience? First and fundamentally, it is the activity described above as felt from the inside. Once we have worked out the kinds of brain activity that matter here, we can say that having that pattern of activity is having conscious experience. Any alternative seems to head back towards dualism. Well, that would be terrible, wouldn't it? End of quote. More illuminating than his philosophy of biology, I found his other minds, the octopus, the sea, and the deep-sea origins of consciousness. He is a superb observer of life among that other intelligent branch of the animal kingdom, the cephalopods, that he studies intensively. In other minds, he escapes the confines of physicalism and treats us to an encyclopedic account of mind from a naturalist perspective. First, its evolution among animals more broadly, then in the cephalopods. He follows that with chapters on minds in general, then our own minds. In effect, this is a summary of all field work as opposed to philosophy on mind. Any theories of mind can be tested here against what has been observed. Octopuses make good test subjects. Quote, an octopus is first an organism with a large nervous system and a complex active body. It has rich sensory capacities and extraordinary capacities for behavior. If there is a form of subjective experience that comes along with sensing and acting in a living system, an octopus has plenty of that. But that's not all. In elusive and alien form, the octopus has some of the sophistications, some of the steps beyond the basic, described in this chapter about consciousness. They are smart in the sense of being curious and flexible. They are adventurous, opportunistic. Octopuses have the ability to adapt to the special circumstances of captivity and their interaction with human keepers. They are often quick to get the hang of how life works in their new circumstances. For example, it has long appeared that captive octopuses can recognize and behave differently towards individual human keepers. In one lab, an octopus took a dislike to one member of the lab staff for no obvious reason, and whenever that person passed by on the walkway behind the tanks, she received a jet of half a gallon of water in the back of her neck. Over the last decade, however, octopuses have often been listed as a kind of honorary vertebrate in rules governing their treatment in experiments. End of quote. Here is an instance of an octopus appearing to know it was being watched and exploiting that to express disapproval about being given second-rate food. Quote, it had not eaten its squid, but instead was holding it conspicuously. As Boal stood there, the octopus made its way slowly across the tank towards the outflow pipe, still watching her all the way. When it had reached the outflow pipe, still watching her, it dumped the scrap of squid down the drain. End of quote. Notably, after dwelling on how intelligent octopuses and cuttlefish are, how ingenious, how much they vary in personality, he remarks how surprising it is that they have such short lives. Quote, giant cuttlefish, these large and complicated animals, have very short lives, just 1 or 2 years. The same is true of octopuses. 1 or 2 years is a common lifespan. I could hardly believe it. I had assumed that the cuttlefish I had been interacting with were old, had met humans often, and worked out how they behaved." End of quote. How can such intelligence be fashioned in so short a time? He wonders, but he does not explore the implications that they may come into the world already wise, in ways natural selection may not have the means of fashioning. And while pointing out that cephalopods separated off from other mollusks such as clams, oysters, and snails, he does not speculate about the cephalopod mind as he does about, say, octopuses. What makes one class in a phylum break away and create minds? Isn't that something worth considering in the study of mind? Quote, "If we make contact with cephalopods as sentient beings, it is not because of a shared history, not because of kinship, but because evolution built minds twice over. This is probably the closest we will ever come to meeting an intelligent alien." End of quote. What does Godfrey-Smith have to say about the role mind plays in the cosmos? From Metazoa. Two starkly different pictures can be compared. We might think of these as desert and jungle. The desert view holds that mind exists hardly anywhere. Is that human exceptionalism? The opposite vision is a jungle with mind everywhere, or nearly everywhere. The most extreme version of this view is panpsychism, with soul-like powers seen even in atoms. The truth is, between these, neither desert nor jungle. End of quote. To propose such a vast range of mind, as from human exceptionalism to panpsychism, is essentially to throw up one's hands as to its place in the cosmos. But there may be a first step in taking on the challenge of mind. Quote, "The genealogical tree of life on Earth, the tree produced by evolution, now over 3 billion years old. First, and surprisingly, some activities that are mind-like in a broad sense are all over the tree, perhaps on every branch and stem. One option has it that, although precursors to experience exist in much of the animal part of the tree, felt experience arose several times in different evolutionary lines. Second possibility is that a primordial form of experience arose just once, longer ago, early in animal evolution. That form was in place for the evolutionary radiation we have charted in this book, and developed in its own way down various different lines. Which is it? The attempt to resolve this question encounters every possible problem. If only Godfrey-Smith could escape the embrace of physicalism from other minds. One of the classic problems of my discipline, philosophy, is the relation between mind and matter. How do sentience, intelligence, and consciousness fit into the modern world? Note that, not the study of consciousness for its own sake, for what it implies about evolution, but for how it fits into the modern world, that is, the world of physics. Having pointed out that a common octopus has about 500 million neurons in its body, close to the range for dogs, he goes on, "Does it feel like something to be one of the large-brained cephalopods? Or are they just biochemical machines for which all is dark inside. There are two sides to the world that have to fit together somehow, but do not seem to fit together in a way that we presently understand. One is the existence of sensations and other mental processes that are felt by an agent. The other is the world of biology, chemistry, and physics. He links biology to chemistry and physics, notice. End of quote. I sense here a welcome open-mindedness. Just ease up on that physicalism and explore mind for its own sake, on its own terms. I've written the above not as an even-handed review of Metazoa itself, but as a survey of the conceptual framework professional academic philosophers of biology bring to the study of evolution of mind and consciousness. Metazoa confirms my impression that the philosophy of biology, as far as mind goes, is barren. It lacks a discourse adequate to account for the biological origins of our experiences of consciousness and what that implies more broadly. Godfrey-Smith demonstrates to me the shuttering of the mind that follows when inquiry into evolution is constrained by considerations coming from modern physics.